Good evening, everybody. Welcome to Blue Sunday. It certainly is a Blue Sunday. I'm your host, Bangkok Joe, and joining me in the studios in Melbourne, Australia, is former Carltonian president, life member of the Carlton Football Club, Mr. Vince Lochisano. How are you, Vince?
G'day, Joe. I'm getting a really glitchy line from you. I'm not sure if it's me or if it's you or what it is, but whatever internet service one of us has got is pretty lousy.
No, I'm getting you loud and clear. So
you're getting me loud and clear. Okay.
Yeah, if anyone else in the
now
TV land is, well, I haven't moved.
Now you're a little bit better.
I'm still here. Anyway.
Okay. How are you, mate?
I'm frazzled. I've just walked in the door. As you can tell, I haven't even had time to set up the PC. We've got the fan behind me because it's hot. I've been at the races. At least I won.
Yes.
Enzo is saying he can hear us both fine, so that's okay. So other than that,
so long as you guys can hear us.
Very frustrated with our football club, or lack. Or I don't even know how to describe it, but anyway, we'll talk about that more a bit later. How are you, Vince? You okay?
Yeah, not bad for a Carlton supporter, I guess. Pretty.
Forget that. What about your ailments? All good?
Oh, look, I'm back to feeling close to normal again. I'd say I'm probably about 95% recovered. So, thankfully, the antibiotics have done the job, and I'm back again and feeling good. But it's only my football team that's making me feel lousy lately. I think most Carlton supporters will be feeling pretty dejected after yesterday's 28-point loss to GWS. But we'll go into that shortly, won't we?
All right. Let's get the formalities out the way first. So, as you all know, the Jumper Punch channel that you are now watching us on is proudly sponsored by the Sporting Globe at Northland. And I believe that there was a bit of a drama at Northland this afternoon. So
it was indeed.
I don't know anything about it. Someone was just telling me. So apparently there were some kids having a bit of a altercation, which is great for Northland, I guess.
That's a very tame way to put it. How about some machete-wielding thugs threatening people? How about that?
I don't know, Vince. I've just walked in the door and I have no idea what the hell's going on. Yeah. So anyway.
No, Victoria's become an absolute nightmare to live in, especially Melbourne. Yeah,
so also don't forget, we are also brought to you by my company, Retired Working For You Tours. If there's anything you want in Thailand, come over here. We don't have machete-wielding idiots. So, get on to rwtours.com.au. Lastly, but not least, we are a social media show. We do it because we like to do it, but we do it for you, the fans. So please like, share, and subscribe. At Facebook, you'll find we've got our own page at Blue Sunday, and we're also at the Jumper Punch on Facebook, or you can see us on at the Jumper Punch. And lastly, if you don't like the show, talk to us. Don't bag it on social media. Okay, Vince. I think
it's not how it goes. Unfortunately,
no, I know. But before we do go on, let's welcome our regular viewers. We've got Tony, DC, Enzo, Brian, Danny, Jai, Robert Galicia, Jai again. So, yeah, everyone, welcome. I'll try and put up as much comments as I can. Just be wary. Sometimes it's hard. People want to ask questions, but we're not going to ask questions like, hey, David, do you remember so-and-so? And, hey, Vince, do you remember so-and-so? If you want to do that, get hold of people outside of the show. And Michelle's just joined us. Hello, Blue Sunday and chat. Hello, Michelle Williams. Right, Vince, we have the person that everyone wants to hear in the background. I wonder how fired up he'll be today. But let me introduce the one and only Mr. David Rees-Jones. How are you, David?
Yes, very good, very good. It's been over 24 hours since the loss, so it gives you a bit of time to get over it and assess things. Not happy though. Not happy with.
I don't think you ever get bad, but anyway, we'll get more into that in a minute. Hey, thoughts on Jesse Motlop? G'day, Reese. Vince, go through the scores and then we'll get through some comments.
Okay, well, as you can see up there on the screen, Carlton 12-10-82 to the GWS Giants, 17 goals, 8, 110, a 28-point loss. Quarter-by-quarter scores, they were pretty even at quarter time. GWS in front by just the 1 point. Then they started to pull away. In fact, every quarter they extended their lead, kicking 3 goals to 1. In fact, that second quarter was very costly, I think, for Carlton, kicking 1 goal 5. We had plenty of opportunities and lots of inside 50s, as the stats will show very shortly, but couldn't make the most of it and actually went in with a 10-point deficit at half-time. That grew also in the third quarter, with GWS kicking 4 goals to 3 in the third quarter, and yet again a 14-point deficit at three-quarter time, and that doubled to 28 points by the final siren, with GWS being challenged a few times, but then always answering every single time Carlton kicked a goal, and they kicked 5 goals 3 to Carlton's 3 goals 1 in the last quarter. So it was a comprehensive win by GWS, a very good win away from home for them. The goal kickers for Carlton were Curnow with 3, Fogarty with 2, singles to Cripps, Chera, Hollands, White, Doherty, Lord and Motlop. And for GWS, the goal kickers were Hogan with 4, Toby Green, the 250-game veteran, with 3, Brown kicked 3, Riccardi kicked 3. So a lot of their tall timber kicked goals. Cadman also kicked 2, and Ward and Briggs kicked 1 goal each. Main disposal winners for Carlton, Doherty 30, Walsh with 26, Cripps with 25, Chera 23, Cooper Lord with 21, and Sarda and Haynes with 20 each. For GWS, Toby Green, best on the ground by a mile, 28 possessions. Ash with 28, Whitfield with 27, Tom Green 25, and Iden and Thomas with 20 possessions each. Up on screen, you'll see the statistics there. Bit of a mixed bag. We did actually have ascendancy in some areas, a few more possessions, not that many. Really, I guess in the end, 13 possessions when there's something like, nearly 700 possessions for a game is not a lot. So it's pretty even, really. Contested possessions, we had quite a few more. What's that, 154 to 116, Joe?
Yep.
And uncontested possessions, they had the better of those. So they got the ball on the outside a lot, 224 to 206. Turnovers and intercepts were pretty similar, both in the 60s. Marks, they had a few more. They had 14 inside of 50 metres to our 8. So Charlie and Harry didn't have too many contested marks there. And they didn't have too many inside 50 either. So hit-outs also, you'll find there that the Conning only had 25 to Briggs's 32. So he probably lowered his colours on the day. Briggs also scored this amazing goal out of thin air after a boundary throw-in. It was an amazing goal to witness. Clangers, I think GWS had a few more there. Tackles, they out-tackled us 64 to 53. And scoring shots as well, 25 to 22. But look at their accuracy there, 68% versus our 55. And what's that last one there?
I'm just trying
There's quite a bit of difference there. One percenters, yeah. Look at the 1 percenters that GWS put on, 57 to 35. David Parkin would be absolutely filthy on Carlton for a stat like that. I mean, 1 percenters are things like, shepherds and blocks and tap-ons and smothers and things like that don't always get on the stats sheet, and that's where they really did show that they were desperate to win that game. In fact, I saw a press conference that Adam Kingsley had during the week, saying that his leadership group came to him during the week and said, "Don't worry about this, coach. We've got this. Leave it to us. We know what needs to be done. We've got it under control." And that was before the game. That was days before the game. So it was interesting that Adam Kingsley didn't hesitate to share that. He was honest about it. And I was very interested to see how they performed based on that information. And gee whiz, didn't they deliver? They walked the walk as well as talked the talk. They certainly didn't let him down. And they really did perform for Toby Green's 250th game, and he played an amazing game himself. Not only his 28 possessions, but contested possessions and marks and goals, and he was everywhere. In fact, if you look, it was a little bit like the Sydney game, Reece. What?
He plays for the club, not for himself, not like our players who are just all out for self-glory.
Well, the interesting similarity between this game, I'd be very interested in Reece's comments, because last week we saw the Sydney game where we just knew, everyone knew, that the only two players that could really take the game away from us, maybe three players, were Heaney and Chad Warner and Nick Blakey. And they're the players that really came good in that last quarter in Sydney. Now, again, against GWS, it was abundantly clear that the main match winners for them were going to be Toby Green, probably Lockie Whitfield and Ash as well. Lockie Ash, isn't it? I mean, they all had brilliant games. And yet again, we couldn't keep their match winners quiet. I don't know what sort of plan was devised for them, but they're the ones that won them the game as far as I was concerned. I mean, everyone put in, don't get me wrong, they had a great team effort, but if you look at who was dominant in that game, it was those players. So anyway, Reece, I've had my bit. I'll let you tell us what.
No,
your
look, I'm just surprised that you're commenting about the leadership group going up to Adam Kingsley and saying that we've got it this week. Well, they're only playing Carlton. Of course, they bloody got it. Why wouldn't you go into a game and you only got to beat? You only got to beat our good players and stifle them, and we got nothing. Our bottom 8 players are hopeless, bloody terrible. I mean, we really struggle when teams restrict and don't allow our good players to dominate, and that's all they really need to concentrate on. Probably half a dozen players and restrict them as much as you're going to. I mean, they're bloody good players, so they're going to get the ball from time to time. But whether it's Walsh or they tag us pretty heavily and put a lot of work into those guys. But that's where you need the other guys to step up from time to time. You always got to have someone popping up, and we keep playing the same blokes who are in poor form. I go through. I mean, I was staggered that Jesse Motlop got a game this week, and it wasn't until the toss that I realised why he got a game.
Exactly. Yeah, I was going to say.
Someone has to hand over the bloody boomerang,
the spear.
Or whatever, and
the spear.
Someone has to hand it over. We didn't have anyone else, so that just stuck with me. I'm thinking, Jesus Christ, that's why he got a game, and that's terrible in itself. But do people sit down there thinking that's racist or something? Well, it's not racist. On his form, he hasn't deserved to be in there, and surely we've got players, young players. We've had the Camprioli boys, been talked about for the last 12 months about, getting them in there, and we give one of them a couple of games, and the other bloke hasn't had a shot at all. Lemmy kicked 7 goals last week. Put him in.
What did I tell you? Did I not have a little bet with you last week that they wouldn't play?
Yeah, it's amazing. I mean, Motlop's played 11 games this year. He's kicked 7 goals in 11 games. It's just not good enough for our probably full. You've got Durden. Durden's played 7. He's kicked 10 goals, but 6 of those goals were against North Melbourne and West Coast.
Exactly, West Coast, yeah.
So, he bagged a few against them. You look at the rest of them. Evans, 4 games, 1 goal. I'll just go through them. Fogarty, 3 goals. He's played 9 games. He's kicked 5, 2 of them yesterday. White played 8 games for 7 goals. Zach Williams, and I think we need to add a bit of class down there, and he's been able to do that. He played 7 games, kicked 8 goals, but 4 of them were against North. So, he played 6 games for 4 goals, playing as a small forward. And then Elijah Hollins, who 5 games, 1 goal. Moyer's had a game and no goals. We just get nothing out of him. We get nothing out of him. I was rapt to see Ollie Hollins down on the forward line, and he was running around and offering something different down there. At least he was having a crack, and you could see him, up the ground, getting up, and he'd be a nightmare to play on. And but then they move him. What was it, after half time? He goes back into the back line. So I can't understand it. Lewis Young hasn't been the answer down there, and we've got a young kid, Harry Lemmy, just fresh, confident after 7 goals. Just throw him in there. The supporters would love to see it. Let's have a look at these kids. Every other club, I keep looking at,
Essendon played some young kid, didn't they?
Yeah, they're playing first gamers all the time. Yeah,
and he was good. He was very good.
But this guy's not, it's not as if it's his first year either. This is his 3rd or 4th year. He's been around for a while, and give him a chance. I'd rather be watching kids make mistakes and learning out on the field than watching the same blokes over and over and over, and making the same mistakes and doing the same thing. It's just, it just gets monotonous and it gets ridiculous, really. And we put too much, even Weeders, he looked a bit disinterested, to be honest.
They all did.
That's probably the worst game I've seen Weeders play, and he just wasn't himself. It's Georgie Hewitt. Probably, he's been up all year.
Probably had his worst game for the year, I reckon.
Yeah, I think, and 2 of our blokes who have been in really good form have had poor games, and probably looking forward to the bye, and where they can have a break and get their bodies refreshed. They played like they were hanging out for the bye, didn't they? Yeah, well, yeah. We always start okay and look good early, and then we just peter out. It's just been a habit all year, and we never look like we can get back in it. The thing about the forward line over the last couple of years, we've looked dangerous at times. We've looked really dangerous, but I reckon teams have worked us out now. From what I gather, Charlie Curnow's he's not completing much of the training, so therefore he's fading out of games. I thought he must have been off at one stage yesterday, injured, because he went missing. He dead set was missing, and I didn't see him at all. He just went missing, and so it's. It is what it is, but we need to have some sort of standard that we have. We need to set standards, and I thought after that Geelong game where we tackled hard and we chased and pressured and did all the right things, that's when you go, well, that's a standard we can play at, and we need to aim to play at that week in, week out, not just one game here and there. And maybe that was just Geelong coming off 5 days and a tough match, and not being ready. So we maybe we just got lucky there and got ahead of ourselves, thinking that we're a bit better than what we were. And that could be the case. But I want to see a bit more quality down on the forward line. I think, our big blokes down there need help because they're the targets, and the opposition know exactly what we're trying to do. I mean, we've got no other options, and we just make life easy for the opposition to just double team and get people back into holes to block it up and make it hard for our tall forwards. And now they know our small forwards aren't going to hurt them, so they can let them go on their own.
David, do you think our club is just full of dumb footballers, the way we play?
No, well, it's hard to know without being in there, but all these players get, they get drafted because they've got ability. I mean, you've got to let the players be able to express that, and whether they are or not. Obviously the better players are allowed to run around and do whatever they want, but you wonder what restrictions there are. And I've said it many a time whenever I hear the bloody, a coach talking about their running patterns being really good and everything like that, it makes me want to vomit. But you wonder where the bloody ball is, and you get numbers over there, and you block and help and do everything you can do. But they try and play a different game now. The game hasn't changed that much. It really hasn't changed that much. And you watch the good teams; they just work harder than the bottom teams. And some of those bottom teams have got a lot of kids in there who are going to have up and down. We haven't got many excuses like that. We have got a few, younger types and haven't played that much footy. Cooper Lord, I thought he had his best game for the club. I thought he was terrific, and there are a few. Doherty got back in and did okay and bobbed up, but we can't have Doherty as the answer either, really. I mean, unless they're going to continue to play him on the back line, that's going to be the only way you continue to have Doc in there, to be honest. But and he was one of our better players. But
it's sad when a 30-year-old has to come in and be one of your better players, isn't it?
Yeah, I don't. Well, he'd be over 30, wouldn't he?
He's nearly 32.
Is he 30?
Yeah, but that's all you know.
Yeah, but look, he's had when you've had injuries during your career, and I'll vouch for this. You get to 30 and you're bugging. You're really, really struggling then, and as much as you want to go on, I hit 30 and I knew. My aim in 1992 was to get back into the senior team, and I worked my butt off to get back in there and get back into the team. But I knew, that last game against West Coast was going to be my last game because, and yet, other people, they just want to keep going. I always said whenever I was going to stop enjoying it or you've got to realise it yourself a lot of times. But obviously there's a lot of money in it and everything. But you just got to make the move and move on and give some kid a chance, because that's what you're holding out at the moment. But and that's just your body. My knees and that were buggered by then. So and obviously Doc, play good footy, and you're going to do that. He's going to bob up, but not the answer for what we need going forward. But there's got to be some kids there that we've drafted over the last few years that we've got to put in. I mean, we've got a mid-season draft coming up. We've got to get someone. Find someone. Find a tall forward. Find a small forward. Whatever there is.
But Reece, isn't there a danger that if we don't play some of our younger players, I mean, you see all these other top teams that are even blooding young players. Collingwood's still blooding young players. Yeah. Hawthorn's still blooding young players. Brisbane. I mean, we just don't seem to want to blood them. And when all of our top players get to the age where they're going to start retiring, we're going to have nothing left.
Well, you need to get them in there and get them learning, and we're at a stage now. We're not going to win a premiership, All right, we're not going to win a premiership. Give up that thought right now. We're not going to win a premiership in 2025. How about we start playing some kids who in 2026, 27 or whatever, we might be a chance. You don't know what's around the corner. I mean, Jagger Smith's, apparently he's going to be a
star,
once in a lifetime player. I mean, that's the sort of thing you hear there. But
that's just another Carlton PR department.
No. This is no. He's got huge raps on him, and you look at the other kids who've come through. Around that mark, like he was right up there. That kid at Richmond's going to be a bloody star, and
Lawler, he looks like Dustin Martin alreay.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is
Smith's body's nowhere near that.
Yeah, but no, I'm not saying that. But what I'm saying is, Chris Judge wasn't at that age either. But he's going to, they're all different. And even that kid from North Melbourne, the other one who was in the mix, he looks good. But they're getting games of footy they're getting games of footy, and that's important because they're not going to learn much in the VFL, to be honest. It's scrappy footy. It's the ball's not kicked. You get out and people struggle in the VFL because it's not given to you on a platter. I mean, you have to earn your kicks it really can be tougher. I mean, if you've got a bit of ability, it can be tougher to get a kick in.
Even the grounds can be a little bit tough to play on compared to MCG and Marvel Stadium. What I was going to ask you too, Reece, is with these younger players, would it be a good idea right now if you're the Carlton board? If you're going to commit to staying with Michael Voss, and this is the big if, right?
Mm-hmm.
Would it be worth right now coming out publicly and saying, look, Michael, your job's safe. You don't have to worry about wins and losses for the end of the year. It's clear that we're going to be struggling to make the 8, right? We want you to blood some younger players that are on the list. We want to see who can play and who can't play. And we want you to experiment with the entire list. And to be honest, start dropping big names that are just underperforming, whether they're Mitch McGovern or whether they're, some of these players that have paid very, very well but underperforming. You mentioned Jesse Motlop. I mean, he's had plenty of chances to get it right. And start playing some of these younger players that are on the list. And it doesn't matter how many wins and losses we have between now and the end of the year. Let's see who can play and who can't, and then go into 2026 and then start planning to try and make the 8 from there.
That shouldn't be coming from the board, though. They're the football people.
The football department. The football department.
But the coaches and that, they're the ones who should be going. They should be saying it. They should be saying,
but what I'm saying is it's the board that decides whether a coach keeps his job or not. It'll end up being their decision as to whether they sack him or not. So if they want to give him some reassurance,
Michael Voss has got to do something to hold his job. I just
don't think that if they don't come out and reassure him about his job, you can bet your life that he's not going to experiment with kids. He's going to play it safe and continue to play the most experienced and well-credentialed team that is constantly underperforming week in, week out. And that's what I'm worried about.
He's going to be his worst enemy then. That's him falling on his own sword. Well, that's but
that's what I'm worried about.
But that's where you need a person, a football director or football whatever, to be able to talk about that with the board and communicate what's happening. That's where it should be coming from. It shouldn't be coming from the board themselves and the coaches. When it comes to who's playing and who's not playing, they've got to have the last say. You can't have the board coming down and saying, we want you playing kids, we want you doing this. They need to know that. They need to know themselves. Let's put the season, not put the cue on the rack, because you go out to play to win every game you play. But let's just look at the reality of it, and we need to put some, give Harry Lemmy 10, 12 games, for the rest of the year. The
right.
value he's going to have. You look at the kid Neil from Geelong. He's a big lumber, and he's a bit different to Harry Lemming, who's pretty slight. But he's taken a while to come on, but he's getting there. But you've got to put games into him. You just don't expect them to. You can't just throw them in for a game or two and expect them to suddenly become bona fide league footballers. And that's where I think we've fallen down. I think we've played the wrong blokes and kept playing them too long. It's.
Well, I remember. I don't know about you, Reece, but do you remember back in about 2016, 2017? There was a bloke called Harry Mackay who was constantly being played in the reserves, and he wasn't really turning it on. He wasn't setting the world on fire. He might have been kicking 2, maybe 3 at best. But people were saying to Brendan Bolton at the time, for God's sake, play him. Yep. Eventually, he bit the bullet and he played him, and all of a sudden, playing senior football, he was way, way better at that level rather than trying to kick bags of goals in the VFL.
Yeah, and even look, I would have played Pitnet against Briggs. I mean, TDK is I'm still not 100% sure about him, to be honest, but he struggles against those real big-bodied players. He's had some, the big, strong ruckman, whereas that's where Pitnet, because TDK is better against the athletic type normally, and I think that's where Pitnet got found out last week, and we could have had, we reverse the roles, and TDK plays against Grundy, and Pitnet plays against, I think it, it's horses for courses at times too, and I would have preferred to see, Pitnet play against, a bigger bloke like Briggs, I think, and TDK can come in, plays a second ruck, but plays it forward, plays another option down forward as well. And, I don't know, we jump in shadows at times, but we just, I don't know, there just doesn't seem to be any real, as I said, standard that we need to play at. Saying that, I think, we're not that far off it either. We're not that far off it. But we need to fix that forward line up, because we our back line can play well, our midfielders can do okay. We just can't put it on the scoreboard. When we are playing well, we just can't, put that scoreboard pressure on the opposition. And it's not as if we can, come from 5 goals, get down, which we were able to do, probably only a year or two ago.
Can I just say, I'm just reading this article on AFL.com, whether it's right or wrong, right? There's 9 things we learned this week. The first one, it heads, the Blues are the masters of their own downfall. So that's the heading. And then it says, different week, same story for Carlton. Have more inside 50s than the opposition. Have a whopping more uncontested and clearances, yet they comfortably lose.
Yeah. And it happens. It's like we run out of puff. It's like the way we play, it just drains us and drains our better players. And that's where I think we rely too heavily on too few. And they're doing the bulk of the work, and we just, they're burned out by the end of the match, and we haven't got enough coming from the lesser lights.
We had something like 58 inside 50s to 47, I think it was. But when you really assess the quality of those inside 50s, there's a lot of rubbish that goes in there.
Yeah, they just bang it. They just kick it. Yes,
that's
how many times they kick it?
That's why we're inefficient. Our biggest issue is inefficiency. Inefficiency with ball in hand. If you have a look at
but they don't move.
Best midfielders, I think Walsh went at something like 57%. With his 26 disposals, only 15 of them were effective. So, it's one thing. Sometimes the stats lie to you, because it's the quality of what you're doing that matters, not the quantity.
But you've got to have a system. You have a look at you have a look at we need to push our forwards up the ground a bit more, or do something different than having them all sitting back with a play coming to them and no one running around, no one doing anything, no one leading, no one just put the hand in the air, kick it up, up here, out here, or whatever. And then we need to be smarter about where we do kick it to. Kick it into space. So, if you've got Harry Mackay or even Charlie running and jumping at the ball, they'd be the hardest blokes to play on. I'd be fearful of playing on either one of them. If the ball was kicked up and out in front of them, they had to run and jump at it. You can't stop them. But we don't do that. We don't kick the ball in that area. We don't allow space for them to run into. And sometimes you just got to change angles up too. We keep going the same, we're on the half forward flank here. All the space, all the players have congregated out this side. All the space is out the other side. Well, let's get it out there. And our we should have some tactic to be able to, manoeuvre and get our blokes to be able to run into a bit of space. And you don't have to kick it 50, 60 metres to them every time. Drop it up in the air 30 metres so they can run 20 and run up and take a grab.
Guess how many possessions Charlie Curnow had in the second half yesterday?
I can't remember any. One, yeah.
Yeah, because it's all about
guess how many
Charlie.
tackles for the game?
Beating his chest.
Yeah.
And guess how many
does.
tackles he put on for the game?
Yeah.
His second efforts are terrible.
Well,
Vince, him and Harry.
And he was wasteful. He kicked 3 goals, 3 in the first half. So, yeah.
Yep.
And second quarter was very costly. Very costly.
I have heard that he is, he is not completing training sessions and not quite right with that knee. So, but if he needs help, get some help for him. And the help isn't Lewis Young, it's Harry Lemmy, or someone else. Give him some help down there. Give him someone who can run around and cause another avenue in there. We just got to try things. Just keep trying things and give some kids a game. That's where I'm at the moment. I just think we really need to start looking at the players we've drafted, have a talk to the recruiters, ask what their special features that they can produce, and give them a chance. Most kids come through footy as midfielders, centremen, ruck rovers, those type of thing. But they you've got to look at the attributes that got them drafted, and give them an opportunity.
We had a comment here, Reece, from a guy called Paul Noble. Thanks for joining us, Paul. He asked, can we talk about one player when you're at the game? He said, Jesus, he looks bad. Is Adam Sard. All these kicks go to nowhere. He just hack kicks them. Would you agree with that assessment?
No, not really. I think he tries to create some run. He's
I thought so too.
At least he's trying to generate some run. And look, the opposition put time into him too. They know he's a lethal weapon coming off that. So they the opposition put time into him because he's someone who can do that. So I think he's worth his salt. I think our whole backline's been pretty good all year, to be honest. So, as I said, I think Weeders, he just looked defeated.
He did have a bad day, but
he looked defeated. He really did look defeated, and I've never seen
when your leaders start playing like that, they all had bad moments. Even Cripper, who was probably one of our best 3 on the ground, but he had moments that were poor. Walsh had moments that were poor. Wiedering had a lot of poor moments. They're our captain and 2 vice captains there. When that starts happening, it starts to surely filter through the rest of the team, doesn't it?
Oh, well, John Nichols had poor moments. Stephen Kernahan did.
I understand that.
Everyone does. Everyone does. You just get on with it. You worry.
But they all had
Don't
more
worry
than
about the
one
last
game
minute.
yesterday.
Worry about the minute coming up. It's no. Look, we're all going to make mistakes, and it gets highlighted more when we, you look at the games when we win, and you can go back through that Geelong game, and I'll find a heap of mistakes we made and blues and that, but we won the game, so we didn't worry about it. So we look at the good things.
On a bright note, can you give us your assessment of our debutant, young Harry O'Farrell?
O'Farrell, he showed some.
I thought he had a pretty good debut, don't you?
Yeah, he did. Yeah, he seemed to fit in that back line and just made some smart defensive. He looks like he's got some good defensive traits about him. So, a couple of times he intercepted and backed his judgment, took a couple of grabs. So
good intercept, Mark.
That's what I want to see, though. I want to see kids like him. I haven't heard of him. I haven't heard of him all year. All of a sudden, he gets a chance, and you look at him and you go, "Geez, he
looks like a footballer."
Yeah, exactly. And keep playing. That's what I'm saying. Why? Last year we didn't see Cooper Lord and we didn't see Ashton Moyer and Jackson Binns till we had that many injuries and we had to play them against West Coast over there.
Yeah.
And, we shouldn't be in that position. Let's just start blooding some kids and giving them an opportunity and, not destroying the kids, not throwing them to the wolves, but give them an opportunity. I mean, no, he was he looked all right. He looked good, and hopefully, because obviously Silvani will come back probably in the next game, the game against Essendon when we play next in a couple of weeks. But so hopefully the kid can hold his spot. I'd hate to see him go out. Because when he comes back in, I'd hate to see that as well. To be perfectly honest, I'd rather see a Lewis Young, sacrificed than a young kid.
Here's an interesting comment. I don't understand what this means. Why does Motlop play like he's in a phone booth?
I don't know. I reckon he'd pick a ball up in a phone booth. He can't pick it up on a footy ground. Jeez, he fumbles a lot. He fumbles.
Doesn't he?
He's slow and look, he kicked a goal on the weekend. He dropped the friggin' mark. He dropped that mark. He dropped it cold. He was on his own in the clear, drops a bloody mark, and the guy gives him a clip over the ear because he give him a pick up the bum. But
Reece, his first goal in God knows how many weeks. And what's this business about?
I think they're more worried about what they're going to be celebrating, how they celebrate.
Seriously, he had no right to be pointing at the crowd and doing. I don't know what that was meant to mean. Maybe someone can explain it to me. But to me, it's the height of arrogance to be, doing goal celebrations, whatever that was meant to mean. When you've been sadly out of form and hardly kicked a goal in the last.
What it was? It was a duck's mouth because he ducked his head before that.
Okay.
I ducked. That's what he was saying to the crowd. I just ducked. I dropped that mark because I ducked my head. I didn't keep my eyes on the ball.
I'd be telling him to pull his head in and start kicking bags of goals before you start doing goal celebrations like that. Become like the best. The best small forward in the league, Cozzy Pickett, who absolutely was brilliant this afternoon. If you haven't seen the Melbourne game, go and watch someone who really knows what he's doing as a small forward. That guy there is the best in the league by a mile at the moment. But Jesse Motlop's not even close.
No. And look, to be perfectly honest, he needs to go back into the VFL to get some form. Obviously, we've seen he's got some good traits and he can play on that, but he's terribly out of form. He's played in every single game this year, hasn't produced once, and just keeps getting a game. And it's not the end of the world going back to play VFL. I mean, go back there at a lesser level. And just get your hands on the ball and get dirty and do some stuff and get back to playing like you were when you were a kid. That's the way
Yeah.
You sort of look. I've coached and I've had to drop blokes and that, and I've said go back and play. We'll put you wherever you want. Where do you want to play? You want to play on the ball because we need you back in the senior team, but you need to be bloody playing well. You just you're out of form at the moment. Go and I want to see you smiling during a match. Have be happy, enjoy it, and players will feel that way. They feel that way. It's a step back, get back, dominate in there, and then come in, playing senior footy again, full of confidence. Have some confidence.
Yeah.
But they play him in the middle sometimes, which I don't understand because he's got no pace. He can't get the ball, so I don't know what he's there for.
No.
I really
he looks good in there. He does look good in there, and he looks and you think, geez, he's going to get. No, he got tackled again. No.
Oh no, he's fumbled the ball. Oh no, he's missed the handball. No, he's missed the target.
So he
panics.
Well, it's not so much panic. It's just he 3/4 does everything. It looks like until there's just that last 25% you need. Either to break away or whatever. I mean, the week before he got run down by a bloke who was about 6'4". He had 2 or 3 yards on him, the ball between him and the goals, and the bloke ran past him. I don't know.
Reece, hypothetical question for you.
Yep.
And I know you want to see kids played, but putting that just to one side for a moment, how many of these players who are currently out of the side, either injured or unavailable for one reason or another, would you be playing in the team? Now, I'm not going to include the players that are out for the season, like Jagger Smith, Brodie Kemp, and Nick Newman, although there's some rumours that Nick Newman might be back before the end of the season. But let's just say that he's out for the season, right? So put those 3 to one side. These players are currently either injured or unavailable. Yep. How many would you be bringing back in? Jack Silvani, just quickly, yes or no?
Yes.
Lockie Cowan.
Maybe.
Zach Williams.
Maybe. Yes.
Orazio Fantasia.
No.
Elijah Hollins.
I'd like to know the background.
Who, by the way, pulled himself out of the team again last week.
Is he taking the piss or what?
Well, I don't know. I mean,
would you have him back if he was available?
I really was looking forward to watching him play this year. He was a player. I sort of thought, geez, he's got a year under his belt. He's got some tricks. He can play a bit, but he's not right above the shoulders.
Considering all of the facts and circumstances as they are, if he was available next week, would you play him against Essendon?
Yes.
Jordan Boyd. Assuming he's over his concussion.
He'd be a maybe. It just depends who you're replacing him with.
Alex Chincotta.
Yes.
And finally, Matthew Cottrell.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Pace. You're bringing in some pace there with Cottrell and Chincotta.
Well, there's potentially 8 players who are currently out of the side that you're saying in the majority of those cases, with the exception of maybe Fantasia, you'd probably bring them back in. So how much does that improve our team, and who would you leave out is the question.
Well, yeah, and geez, that's an easy one. The ones you leave out. Yeah, that's that.
Are you going to drop the young kids, or are you going to drop some big names?
Well, you need to put pressure on players to hold their spot for a start. And I don't know. I didn't see any of the twos, and it's just a matter of But I don't want to see the same ones going in and out each week. I don't want to. I want to see the kids in there for given a bit of a chance. And
does Akers need to be dropped because he has been? Yeah, there we go, Paul. Thanks, Paul. You're on my wavelength. he has had an absolutely horrendous year, hasn't he? I'm wondering whether if they brought him back too early yesterday, because I don't know if he's over his shoulder injuries, but he was terrible again.
Yeah,
Who?
Cottrell's been great for us. I mean, he's been a bit of a loss this year because he does have pace. He has some leg speed, and we just don't have much of that. We're very.
But
very few.
What do you think of Akers? He seems to me to have fallen off a cliff this year.
Yeah, he has. I don't know whether whether it's his shoulder or whatever, but he'd be a player that you'd be looking at and saying, you probably need to go back and get a kick in the Magoos and find a bit of form, and been great for us.
And because don't forget, apart from those names that I just gave you, there's a good 6 or 8 players that have either played a handful of games or not even had an opportunity yet. Players like Billy Wilson and Harry Lemmy, as you said, but also Ben and Lucas Camporeale. They're both waiting in the wings. You've got Ashton Moyer and players like that. I mean, I don't know. I mean, how many of these do you throw in? I just think that once we mathematically can't make the finals, you'd be almost negligent not to play these guys and at least give them a bit of a run at it for, at least 3 or 4 weeks each.
Well, we need to see, Lucas has played, but Ben Camporeale, because he's apparently the better one, and I mean, we all saw what Lucas could do in the first round. I mean, it was Richmond and whatever, but he looked okay and looked, quite capable. A bit on the slight side, belt wise and that. But if his brother's better, then he should be playing. He should be in there. What
about Voss? Just again, before we go to votes, what about the coaching performance? I thought yesterday's game, you know what my mind went back to? When we had the chance 4 years ago to secure Adam Kingsley, I thought he coached brilliantly yesterday, and yet Michael Voss, no answers.
I think Vossi could be his worst enemy if he keeps doing the same thing over and over and over. And even when you're trialing something, give it a chance. I mean, he put Ollie Hollands down the forward line for the first half, and I enjoyed it. I like he's a good young kid who tries pretty hard.
He tries hard, doesn't he?
Yeah, and he runs, and that's what
like
the game
a little
is.
Whippet.
Yeah, but these days the game is he's down the back line. He's got he's got a good engine, so he's gonna get to contest after contest. So let him do his thing, but and give it a chance. Give it a chance to work. But I don't know, Vossi. He could be his own worst enemy in the end, and if he doesn't sort of start doing something different. And even coming to the people and the supporters and offering something, saying, look, we're going to start playing some kids, that's it. We're going to start playing some kids and start looking to the future. And I think most Carlton supporters would be very, very happy with that. And it's not conceding anything. It's just saying we're going to give these kids a run. We're probably bringing them in a bit earlier than I would like, but we've got players not performing in the senior team, and we're going to, players will be played on performance, and if you're not performing, you're out. You perform and you stay in.
Would you agree with me that the next game against Essendon is like doomsday?
Look, it's a big game, and
if we lose that.
But I'm not saying throw 4 or 5 kids in all at once. I'm saying let's start blooding one at a time. They'll have a taste for it. They'll
like your Harry O'Farrells.
Yeah, exactly. And give them a taste for it, because that's going to build their hunger and that's going to make them better footballers.
I watched young Angus Clark for Essendon make his debut, and he kicked 3 goals. He was fantastic on Friday night.
Yep. And so, that's it. We don't know, what
young players surprise you.
Harry Lemmy could have come out and taken 3 or 4 marks. You know, he could have been a leading option that we haven't had on our forward line. Well, our forward line is the same every bloody week. Harry and Charlie down there, and they're the go-to people. And you know, we've got a negative forward down there, Fogarty, who will do the tackling and that. And, you know, then we've got, you know, whatever. We've just got, you know, nothing changes down there. You know, you bring a Fantasia in for a Motlop or a Durden or whatever. You're not changing things around by doing that. They're all much the same. You just, you know.
It's got an awfully similar feel to it. Sorry, Joe, just one last thing before you go on with votes and things. But right now, it's got an awfully similar feel to 2023. And even if we do lose to Essendon, I think that was our low point in that season before we had all of a sudden just turned it around. I think they had Camp Kerno or something like that you know, made the players make a pact amongst themselves to really put in, and all of a sudden we won, I think, 9 in a row or something along those lines, and all of a sudden we were in the finals and we got to the third week of the finals. But can you see that happening right now if we happen to go down the same path? And if we lose to Essendon, we'll be in exactly the same position. 4 wins, 8 losses. That's what we were when we lost to Essendon 2 years ago. Now we're 4-7 now. If we happen to lose to them in 2 weeks from now, it'll be deja vu.
Yeah, we're not playing well. Yeah, I don't know. But that's the team we got, though, isn't it? That's the team we got, and we know that they are better than what they're showing us at the moment. So there's a lot. I don't know. I hope they got the week
possible,
off.
But I don't think anyone is expecting that same thing to happen this time around, are they?
Well, I'm hoping they're going to Ed Kerno's this bloody Saturday night. They're having a barbecue and a few beers and
sit around the campfire.
Sit around the campfire.
Smoke dope and hold hands and sing Kumbaya.
Well, hopefully a few home truths come out, though. That's what needs to happen. You know, and a bit of pride in their own ability and a bit of pride in the, you know, wearing the jumper and with a bit of pride. And, I just think that, there's a lot that needs to really be done. And Vossi needs to, he needs to start doing things because he's going to be under the pump otherwise. I mean, and he wants to keep his job. You know, he needs to start putting on some of these players to start performing a lot better and you know than what they are at the moment because you know they're not going. Clubs don't sack 20 players; they sack coaches.
Well, look, if we're fancying ourselves as a potential finals team, we are actually playing 4 teams that you would probably think are going to be bottom 6 before the end of the year. We're playing Essendon, who, in my opinion, are a bottom 6 side, especially struggling to beat sides like West Coast and North Melbourne in recent weeks. Port Adelaide, they struggled to beat. And even Richmond on the weekend, you know, they just got over them in the last quarter. So, you know, and with all of their injuries, because they've copped a whole heap of injuries and another couple of bad ones on Friday night. So they're very vulnerable, right?
Yeah.
So if we've actually got an opportunity to get ahead of the ledger. We're 4-7 now, but if we win our next 4 games, and call me crazy, but I think this is possible. Essendon, West Coast, North Melbourne, and Port Adelaide. I know it's harder because it's in Adelaide, but they're not travelling all that well. They've been belted a lot lately. So there's a potential 8-7 scenario after 15 games, and all of a sudden you're back up, if not in the 8, at least knocking on the door of the 8. Now, that's what they're going to have to try and focus on for the next month, win the next 4 games. But I don't know about you. Something tells me it ain't going to happen.
Well, we've got to do something different, though. We can't just keep doing the same
But they're
thing.
all bottom 6 sides. Port Adelaide's a bottom 6 side this year.
Yeah. I want to see something. I mean, Adam Chera's name come up underneath before. I'd like to see him playing as on a half forward flank. Him on one side, Ollie Hollands on the other.
Yeah,
try something different down there. I mean, we did it with Zach Williams, and you put a bit of quality down there. Smart footy brains. Who know where to go, where to run, where to get the footy, sort of thing. They're going to find it. They're going to find it. So, I'd love to see an Adam Chera, even though I thought he had a pretty good game on the weekend.
He did.
Yeah, he's the sort of player who we could release out of that midfield without hurting us too much and being another avenue to attack and just smart footballers down there rather than, dumb ones.
Joe, sorry, I interrupted you earlier. Sorry, mate.
I was going to say, you can sack Voss. It ain't going to change a thing.
No.
That's true.
Because he's not the only one that does the coaching. I mean, he relies on forward coach to rely on the forwards and the midfields and the backs. So all these people going, Voss can't coach, he probably can't. I don't know, right? But he's the captain of the ship and got to take the blame. But see, everyone says Voss has to go, right? Tell me who you're going to replace him with. But everyone says Voss got to go.
There's a few around at the moment. There is a few around at the moment.
Well, but do they want to come?
And Ken Hinkley's going to come available next year.
Do you want him?
I'm going to have something to say about all of this topic in my verdict segment a little bit later on in the show. But if you think that just changing coach makes all the difference, let me tell you, everyone, we've had 8 coaches in the last 24 years, and that's one every 3 years, and nothing has really changed. And it goes higher than that. It goes a lot higher than that. But I'll talk about that later.
As Coach Reese.
Yeah.
You'll do the job.
A better job than all of them.
Yeah,
you do it for $2 million a year?
I can tell you one thing: they won't be play. You wouldn't have any players against Essendon because they'll be in therapy for 3 weeks. Because I would tell them a few truths, and they wouldn't like
I'm sure that North Launceston, when you coached down in Tasmania, they didn't get a soft version of David Rees-Jones. I'm sure you hopped into them when you coached in Tassie.
Apparently, there's still a few of them in therapy, David.
No, we're a bit harder back then.
But he coached them to a premiership, so whatever he did worked. That's for sure.
Weren't too. That's the thing. I mean, you got to take criticism. You've got to be able to handle criticism, and I look at this, and Elijah Holland's stuff now, and I'm just going, Jesus Christ, I mean, you start. I was really looking forward to, watching him play this year, and then he's had all this stuff happening, and now you start thinking, Jesus, get rid of the kid, get him out of the club, if they can't handle it, whatever, or if they're if they're dabbling in whatever or doing whatever, you don't need that. Don't need that around the place. So, you get rid of the
bad
kids.
Influence.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So I don't know what is happening in there, but, and that's what happens. Speculation. People start talking, speculation happens. How can you miss a game?
Just a quick shout out. Thanks, Seba, for your donation. Can we get past the tried and tested coaches, get a new fresh coach and clear the board out? Well, okay.
Yes.
You can be the president, Seba, and we'll get you up there.
Actually, to be perfectly honest, the club itself is running pretty well. The club with its membership, its sponsorship, its probably every facet of the club could be. I mean, we've got 100,000 members. In every area, the club, except for on the field, is doing very well. No, that's it. That's it. We're a football club.
Brackets, except for on the field, close brackets.
Except for on the field.
Which is the only thing that everyone really cares about.
That's what we.
We're good corporate citizens, Vince.
So, I mean, we could sack everyone and get rid of, I don't think it's going to make much difference at all. I think we need, there's a couple of things we probably need, but I shouldn't go there.
Let's get to the votes. David?
Yeah, look, I thought Cripper, he tried hard all day. He's not playing his Brownlow medal form of last year by any stretch of the imagination. But, yeah, look, I thought he was probably our best player over the three quarters and kept going there. I put Chera in there for the one vote, for 2 votes, sorry. I thought he was pretty consistent over the day. I saw, something bob up before about Chera not hurting opposition or whatever, and he probably does it, but at least he gets the ball and he tackles and he's there. He's a good midfielder. I don't know. I'd like to see him probably play. I'd probably like to see him playing a bit forward and just see what he can offer down there. And I thought Doherty, once again, he didn't really hurt the opposition too much, but he got the ball 30 times or whatever it was, and a lot more than a lot of them.
Can't ask for more than that.
No, but it was just a game by our team, and no standouts of any sort. Just blokes who flashed in and out and did bits and pieces.
Vince?
Yeah, I noticed that all three of us went for the same 3 players, except in different order. So I think if you add them up, Cripps got a total of 7, Chera with 6, and Doherty with 5. But I went for Chera on top. I mean, you could have raffled all of these 3. I thought they were clearly our 3 best players on the ground, but they all still had moments that weren't that flash. And that just goes to show you how poorly the rest of the team went. But I put Chera on top for 3. I thought he battled hard all day long and was cleaner with the ball than the others. Doherty I gave 2. He got 30 possessions. He battled hard. He was brought back into the team after getting more than 30 possessions in the last couple of weeks in the VFL, and he took that form into the seniors. So I think that's admirable from that point of view. And he's clearly a proud man. He's battled, 2 or 3? Is it 3 knee injuries, I think? ACLs?
3.
Yeah, 3 of them. And as well as that, he's had, cancer and everything. So, look, you've got to admire him. You've got to take your hat off to him. I do hope that he does the dignified thing and announces, that this will be his last year in the second half of this year. But I can't see any point in continuing on. I think he'll probably get into coaching. And I think he's certainly trying to finish off a little bit like you, Reece, back in 1992. He fought back to get into the seniors, and he's played well, so good on him. So I gave him the 2 votes, and even though Cripps was, in your eyes, the best of our players, I thought he was worthy of 1 vote because I think at times he butchered it and at times he had some poor moments, but I ended up giving him the 1 vote.
Well, I was like David. I mean, I really struggled with the votes, but these, as far as I'm concerned, these 3 were the best 3 for us. Patrick Cripps, 3 votes. Doherty 2, after all the adversity, and to come back the way he did. And then Adam Chera, the 1 vote. Now, as people know, I have been away for the last few weeks, so I have updated our leaderboard, and it currently sits like this. So Patrick Cripps has taken over the lead. So
really,
Hewitt was a bolter, but Patrick Cripps is on 47. I did them all from round 1 last night at about 1 o'clock in the morning, just to make sure. So Patrick Cripps is out front on 47. Then we've got George Hewitt on 33, Tom DeConning on 24, Jacob Wietering on 19, and Sam Walsh on 18. I've had a comment here. I just want to tell people something. Someone said, do we want Nathan Buckley as coach? But
no.
From what I've heard, he's a shoo-in to get the Tassie job. He's had.
No, I wouldn't say that. I'd say he's got his hat in the ring, but
I don't know about that.
I don't think he's their. I don't think he's their first choice, but he might be. he might be the only one that they can get their hands on, because I think Chris
Man,
Floyd would be their first
I
choice.
can tell you one thing: they are going to want a big name. They're not going to go for Adam Kingsley or whatever. They're going to want a big name, and Nathan Buckley's a big name, so he'd be right up there amongst it.
He wants it. He clearly wants it, because he's mentioned.
And to be perfectly honest, it's going to be a tough gig. The first couple of years. Yeah. You look at them all. It's the toughest of gigs. So you've got to get in there and just do the hard work. And
do you remember who the first coach? Do you remember who the first coach was at Gold Coast?
Peter McKenna.
Guy McKenna. Yeah, Guy McKenna. Where's he now? Nowhere.
Yeah.
Who was the first coach at GWS? Kevin Sheedy.
Kevin Sheedy.
But he was probably assisted a lot by Mark Choco Williams at the time.
Yeah.
But then who took over from him?
He's going to need a good gang around him too, because that's going to be a lot of development. It's trying to put you're going to be. He'll be pulling players. They'll be probably gifted players from each club. Each club will have to forfeit a player or so. So they're going to have to get all those players and pull them all together and try and not an easy situation. And then they're going to have a lot of picks in the draft and a lot of good young kids coming through. So it's going to be interesting. It's going to be really interesting. And those first few years are going to be the toughest. They'll be the hardest, the toughest, and
If you were running the if you were running the Tasmanian football team, Reece, would you be trying to get former Tasmanians like current premiership coach at Brisbane, Chris Fagan, or Brendan Bolton, who's a Tassie boy? He'd probably love to go back there and coach, wouldn't he?
Yeah, you don't know. You don't know, and that's sort of they might be happy, happy over here, and as I said, that's going to be real hard work for the first few years. So it's a matter of, they
need someone who can actually promote the club. They almost need a real salesman. I think that's one of the reasons why they went for Kevin Sheedy at GWS, because
put it this way, they can't even make their mind up on the stadium yet. They haven't even got that resolved. They haven't put a shovel in the ground as yet. So they can shoot themselves in the foot well before this even comes out. So there's every chance of that. Every single chance of that. I've had the legislative vote over the weekend.
It's not through. It's not through Parliament. No,
they've got a weird Parliament down there. They're a real weird Parliament. The Greens are dead against it. They're dead against anything that's worthwhile.
Jackie Lambie's against it. Stupid.
So you've got all that bloody morons down there who are pitching against it. But there's every chance they mightn't have a team. Every single chance they might not have a team. They and I don't want to call it backward, but they just shoot themselves in the foot.
Matthew Richardson.
I was down there for 3 years.
Came out on radio.
It's a great place down there, and it's self-sufficient. They had a magnificent timber industry down there, and what do? Get rid of the bloody whole lot. They re-energizing that. Now they're having bushfires and bloody everything because it's not managed properly. Yet they manage the place perfectly. Their seafood, timber industries, mate, they just shoot themselves in the foot. They're trying to get rid of the salmon farms and things down there, or tuna farms, or what is salmon? It is salmon farms down there at the moment. And they're different. They just want to kill Tasmania. They just want to live in bloody caves and
old hands and smoke dope and sing kumbaya. Yeah,
that's it. That's all.
Matthew Richardson came out on radio just yesterday and said, if Tasmania doesn't go ahead with this stadium and they end up losing this team, he said it'll be the worst mistake Tasmania's ever made.
They make them all the time, though. They make mistakes all the time down there.
And he's a Tassie boy.
There's so many people down there who are anti-everything, any development, anything at all, anything to
chop
down
a tree and they go hysterical.
Yep. They are anti-everything. They're just morons. And
tree killers. Anyway, it is now time.
Rocco Moro reckons there's nothing wrong with smoking dope. Okay, fair enough.
Come over here. Everyone does it. Anyway, it's now time for Reece to give us his Spirit of Carlton award, and this week it goes to
Who was it? Cooper. I thought he had his best match. Yeah, Cooper Lord. So I thought he was very good and just tried hard. Got a lot of the ball, and used it pretty well too. So made a couple of blues.
I was actually tempted to give him a vote.
Yeah, he wasn't far.
He was just on the outskirts of my votes.
Yeah, no, I was much the same. Him and Nick Haynes were just on the outskirts of my voting, but I thought Nick Haynes had a pretty good game. But Cooper Lord, good to see too, and the kid, he's improving, and every match is experience for him. It's coming up against different opponents, against tougher blokes, this, that, whatever, and he's getting better as he's going along. So good on him, and
they've got to keep playing him, don't they? They just have to keep playing him.
Yeah.
Anyway, guys, next week we're going to win a game because we're playing the bye, but apparently we might lose.
We can't lose. We can't lose next week. No, we can't lose.
Sure?
That's the only thing. Sure? I'll guarantee you, I'll bet my house on it. We will not lose next week. All right.
Well, at least your bets might win, not like Vince's. Bloody hell.
And we're gonna give you a rest next week, Bruce. We're going to let you have a bye as well as the team.
Yeah, no worries. All right, guys.
So now I think this is right. The leaderboard. I've got Vince on 7.
Yep.
Yes. Reese on 6 and Joe on 5.
Well, Reese and I both went for GWS, and you went for Carlton.
Yeah, but Reese and I the week before went for Carlton against the Swans. So
and I went for.
I know
Sydney.
you're two in front of me, and Reese is 1 in front of me. So that's it.
Okay.
So David,
I want to see the team. I want to see the team before I tip next week. So
yeah, we'll get you tip for the week after.
That's I'll give you my tip now. Carlton, 100 points.
Yeah, I'll tip
Carlton. Another game. I can't tip. I can't tip the scum. I can't tip Essendon scum. I can't even say.
To be perfectly honest,
I wouldn't even get out of the car. When I had a girlfriend, she wanted to buy her father the Essendon Scum Premiership DVD. I wouldn't even get out of the car and go into the shop. She had to bring the guy from the shop out to the car, and he just laughed. I said, "I'm sorry. If I go into that ground, I'll just piss all over it, and I don't think I want to get arrested today."
We're a better team. We're a better team on the MCG. We're a much better team on the MCG. We play our best footy there, so that's why I think we'll win it.
Still, hang on. Enzo says we're going to lose. He still thinks we're going to lose next week. Maybe we should start now. What do you think? Anyway, hey, David, thanks very much for giving us your Sunday night. We really appreciate it.
No worries, guys. And
wish you all the
as
best.
always, go the Blues. Go the Blues. Let's hope
we'll see you, mate. See you next week. No, we won't see you next week. See you in 2 weeks.
Yeah, 2 weeks. All right. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Reece.
Well, there you have the great man, David Reece Jones. Hang on, the buy's paying. Peter says the buy's paying $1.92. I wonder what the Blues are. They're probably about $2.05.
We're the underdogs.
Anyway, Vince. Apparently, there were some other games this week. I got to apologise. I don't understand all these Man Brooks and Nan and wherever they are. So you'll have to help me. So that on Thursday, this game I did watch in entirety, and I
refuse to call them by those names.
I thought Geelong were very, very, very lucky, and the Bulldogs played a game like Carlton, very, very, very wasteful. But anyway, Vince.
Well, look, I thought this game seriously was such an entertaining game. It was one of the best 3 games of the year. Both teams deserve to make finals and would be worthy grand finalists, quite frankly. I thought the Bulldogs did a great job to be competitive for the entire night. Only their poor kicking probably cost them in the end, but Geelong, such a professional outfit, and, they put it on the scoreboard when it mattered most, and they were extremely efficient and extremely accurate in front of goals. And in the end, that's what matters. You got to make the most of your opportunities. So it was a great game to watch. If you haven't seen it, I highly recommend you watch it. And it was a pleasure to watch that game of football. 20 goals, 127. To the Western Bulldogs, 16, 17, 113. I don't think they lost any admirers, the Dogs. They are the real deal this year. There's no question about that.
Now,
Then, of course,
hang on. Before you go on to the Essendon Richmond game, right?
Yeah.
There was another game in between that was won by a very good Carlton supporter. Tottenham Hotspur won the Europa Cup. Congratulations to Ange Postecoglou.
Yes.
I'll have him as our coach.
Yes. Yes, Ange Postecoglou has got an unbelievable habit of collecting silverware every time he coaches a different team. So he won the Scottish League with Celtic, and with Tottenham he's gone and won the Europa League. So good on him, and they'll be playing Champions League football next year.
Bring in the Blues. Okay, keep going.
Well done, Ange. On Friday night we had the very first Dream Time at the G on a Friday instead of a Saturday night. So I actually attended this, and was a wonderful celebration of the Indigenous heritage. And as I said last week, if they just left it at this particular night and gave them all of the attention they want, I'd be more than happy with it, because it is very special to be there for this sort of celebration. But I just think the whole Sir Doug Nicholls thing goes on for far too long. They call it Sir Doug Nicholls round, but they might as well call it Sir Doug Nicholls month or Sir Doug Nicholls season. Anyway, Essendon ended up pulling away from Richmond in the end, 11-15-81 to 8-10-58, and I doubt very much that either of these teams will be playing a part in September. Then on Saturday, we had, apart from our game, the Twilight game was at the MCG, and I didn't think that Brisbane was going to play all that well in the MCG against Hawthorn, because Hawthorn's had the wood on them for years. But they finally came good against Hawthorn on the MCG, and now there's some big question marks over the Hawks. 8-12-60 to Brisbane Lions 14-9-93, and they really showed why they were the premiers last year. So it was a very, very good win after what's been 2 or 3 pretty lean weeks for the Lions.
Okay, North and Collingwood.
North stayed with them for 3 quarters, but then Collingwood showed their class by kicking, I think it was 8 goals to 1 from late in the third quarter. So 9-9-63 to Collingwood, 15-18, 108. Ended up being a 45-point margin.
And
also on Saturday night, we had Fremantle dismantling Port Adelaide, 15-10, 100. They kicked the ton, which was good for them. Port Adelaide, 7-9-51, and you'd have to say that they're looking like playing no part in September either, and that coaching handover probably should happen before the end of the season, you'd think. Today, Adelaide, well, again, Eagles stayed with them for a while, but then Adelaide pulled right away in the end. 19-14, 128, a big 66-point win, 11 goals, in fact, to 8-14, 62 to the Eagles.
The other
Great game by Melbourne this afternoon. Brilliant performance, 19-17, 131. Posy Pickett running riot, and Sydney only kicked 12 goals, 6, 78. And they beat us last week. So, if Melbourne can do that to Sydney, the Melbourne game for us coming up won't be easy. They've turned their season right around. In the last game, I think St Kilda's down in the doldrums with us at the moment, 8-13-61. To the Gold Coast Suns, 12-8-80, who go on their merry way, their winning way, and up in the top 4. There's the ladder. Collingwood on top, Brisbane second, Gold Coast third, Adelaide are on 28, as are Geelong. Those 5 teams all had victories. Hawthorn slipped down to 6th, also on 28. Western Bulldogs also slipped down to 7th. They're on 24. And the GWS Giants held on to their 8th spot by beating us. They're also on 24 points in the 8. Outside of the 8, also on the same amount of points, but out on percentage, are Fremantle, who had a very good win, and Essendon, who had a good win. Melbourne is just below them on 5 wins. They're on 20 points. They also had a big win today. And most of these teams all lost. and don't look like playing in finals unless they have a massive turnaround. And that's, of course, ourselves, Carlton, on 16 points in 12th position, followed by Sydney Swans on 16 as well. Same with St Kilda, and same with Port Adelaide, also on 16. And the last three are Richmond on 12, North Melbourne on 10, and West Coast bringing up the rear on 4. So those last 7 teams all had losses.
Okay. And now, ladies and gentlemen, it's time for Vince's verdict. Go, Vince.
Okay, well, I just want to... there's a couple of things I'm going to talk about. First of all, I just wanted to make mention of a couple of things that are a continuation of what I was talking about last week. I noticed with Sir Doug Nicholls' round, which has gone on for at least 2 weeks now and will probably continue for another week or two, I couldn't believe this afternoon after watching that Melbourne-Sydney game that the whole theme song had changed. And apparently quite a few of the theme songs have changed. Even the Geelong one played on Thursday night had changed. So they're singing the songs in Aboriginal language as well. And some sort of singer that came on to sing the Melbourne song can't even sing in tune. It's out of tune. Have a listen to it if you haven't had a chance to listen to it. I mean,
for them.
Why do they have to sing the song in some sort of Indigenous language for? Why? Why do they have to change the name of the team? I'm sick of all this business. It's just going too far. It really is going too far. The goal squares are all painted in Aboriginal flag on one side, Torres Strait Islander flag on the other side. Where does all this stop? I just think it's getting beyond the joke now. It's just more and more of this being shoved down our throats. I mean, you can't even sing the song without the words have all changed. The names of the teams. No one can spell them. No one can pronounce them. And yet again, even the commentators on TV are referring to these names. I don't like it. I don't think it should be, to this extent. It's one thing to celebrate, the contribution made to the game by Indigenous players, Aboriginal players, players from the Torres Strait Islands or Tiwi Islands or wherever they all come from. That's fine. But why does it have to go to this extent, really? And, of course, the traditional welcome to country and the usual people that make the money out of the Aboriginal industry in this country, because that's what it is. It's an industry. I just think it's, there's got to be every year it just keeps getting more and more and more. And where will it all stop? That's the question I've got. Anyway, that's the follow-on from last week. But what I wanted to say also was in relation to Carlton, we now have the bye. I think it's pretty clear that the club is at a major crossroad at the moment. Now, 2 years ago, I don't know, they pulled a rabbit out of their hat somehow. I don't know how much Michael Voss had an input into all that or whether it was just player-driven. But unless they can do exactly the same thing 2 years down the track and turn it all around and make the finals, I can hear the jungle drums beating already, Joe. And I guess my message here is to Michael Voss himself. I actually believe, Michael, that this will be your last chance to get it right in the second half of this season, because if the second half eventuates the same as the first half, there's a bloke called Graham Wright that's going to take over as the CEO, and I don't think this guy takes passengers, and I don't think he's here to waste time, and I don't think he's taking the job on the basis of just going with the flow and doing what he's told by the powers that be above him. I think he's the type of guy that's going to want to take control, make changes, and if he doesn't have the confidence in you to do the job for next year, mate, I wouldn't mind betting that he'll recommend to the board that we need a change of coach. So I think, Michael Voss, you're at the crossroads big time here, mate. And
better do something.
I don't see even the leaders now are starting to play poorly and starting to show signs that even they've lost hope in whatever the game plan is or whatever the philosophy is that he's trying to instill into this team. Everything is hard work. Everything looks laborious. Every goal takes a lot of effort. Nothing's easy. And I don't even see the players really enjoying themselves out there too much. And by the end of the game, they're all pretty rejected. So, and dejected. So he's going to have to, as Reece said, do something different, whether that's trying some new players or, swinging players into different positions. I don't know. But whatever you're doing now, it ain't working. And I just don't know that they're going to be able to turn this around like they did in 2023. So I think, Michael's at the crossroads, and I think the club itself is at the crossroads. And the more we continue to lose, the more the media will jump on all of this, and they'll start to encourage those jungle drums to beat even louder.
Yeah, I don't know, Vince. I don't know what I actually think there's problems from the top. We haven't heard anything from the president or the CEO.
Well, look, I'm tempted to say something about that, but I'm going to hold off until things get to the point where I think look, as I said earlier, we've got an opportunity over the next 4 matches against Essendon, West Coast, North Melbourne, and then Port Adelaide to put 4 consecutive wins on the board. If we can't do that, well, then we're not going anywhere. And if we happen to lose 1 or 2 of those games, I can't see us getting out of that hole before the end of the year. So things could get pretty ugly between now and the end of the season. When I think things are getting to the point where there's likely to be a change, I'll make more comment about it. But what I will say is this. Carlton supporters, if you think that the answer to our problems is just getting rid of the coach and bringing in someone else, you are kidding yourselves. We've had 8-9 coaches now in the last 24 years. Nothing has changed. And the reason nothing has changed is because it never changes where it needs to change. I've always said the fish rots from the head. The culture starts at the top. The people who even put Michael Voss there in the first place, if you think Michael Voss is the problem, they're still there. They're still making the decisions. And they always use the coach as a scapegoat for their own failures. And that's the problem. They are never made accountable. It's the coach that gets made accountable. His assistants get made accountable. Maybe 1 or 2 in the football department get made accountable. And I noticed that there are people asking for Brad Lloyd's head. But that's not going to be the answer to everything. I'm telling you. The fish rots from the head. The culture starts from the top and it filters down. And our toxic culture has been in place now for pretty much 25 years, Joe. I know. I was born in 1968, okay? That tells you everyone how old I am. But I can remember football from about 1975 onwards. And from 1975 to 2000, those 25 years, I remember Carlton as a successful club in every respect. We played finals. We were confident. We were even arrogant. And we made finals and we won premierships. And we had a swagger about us as Carlton supporters. Everyone wanted to be like us. That was the first 25 years that I can remember in my life. But the last 25 years, between 2001 and 2025, I'm sorry, when David Parkin resigned as our coach at the end of 2000, I knew then that we were about to get into a period of great uncertainty. And ever since Wayne Britton took over, got sacked the following year after our first wooden spoon, and then we've gone through coach after coach. I'll list them for you. So you had Britton, then you had Pagan, then you had Ratton, then you had Malthouse, then you had John Barker for the rest of that year, then you had Brendan Bolton, then you had David Teague, and now you got Michael Voss. How many more do you want? Do you think this board is capable of appointing the right coach for the right reasons? Even their own subcommittee that was appointed to make that decision 4 years ago came up with a recommendation that the board didn't like. So they ended up appointing the one who they thought was going to be more marketable, was going to be someone who could sell more memberships, someone who had a name and a reputation. Forget whether he can actually coach or not. And here we are 4 years later. So I'll leave it at that. And Joe, that's my verdict for this week.
Yep, that's it. All right, so now it's time for your bet of the week. And
Okay.
I'm gonna say you lost again last week.
Only just.
So this, Vince, I don't know how much money we've got. So it's $45. Are you betting the
It
whole
was
bank?
it was the Hawthorn Brisbane game that we lost on. I thought Hawthorn would win that by at least 6 points, but in the end, Brisbane ended up knocking them off. So that's why we lost it.
So have we only got $45 in the bank?
Yep.
No, so you're
And
going
that's
all
why-
out.
And that's why we're going all out this week. I'm going to go for Adelaide to beat Sydney. The odds I got this afternoon was $1.90. In fact, both teams are $1.90. I don't know if those odds have changed since Sydney's lost to Melbourne, but Adelaide had a big win over West Coast. They've got to go to Sydney and beat them on their home ground on Saturday night, but I believe they can do it. So we're going to put all $45 on Adelaide to beat Sydney at $1.90. If they do that, we get back $85.50, and if they don't, I'm going to have to tip in another $100 into the kitty.
All right. Okay. So, guys, that brings us to the end of tonight's show. On behalf of Vince, we'd like to thank David Rees-Jones, who kindly gives up his time every Sunday night. I'm sure he's probably got better things to do, and like all of us, is probably frustrated, pissed off, and annoyed with the effort.
Funnily enough, Joe, can I just correct you there?
Yeah.
Reese loves doing it. He tells me all the time. He says, no,
I
I
know.
enjoy coming on a Sunday night. He said it's good therapy even for me to come on and express my opinion and, you know, have a bit of a rant if I'm not happy with what the coach is doing or whatever. He actually tells me that he actually enjoys it. So you don't have to say that he's got better things to do. He hasn't. He actually enjoys coming on.
Well, that's okay. I'm just being noble. And I'd like to thank all of the people out there who consistently comment. Thanks, Seba, for your donation.
Yeah, and Seba, you're a champion, mate.
Yeah, our usuals.
Thank you to all of our others. Have we mentioned them all by name? Petra Khan's there, Jeffrey.
I've got to speak to Jeff. Jeffrey lives in Concan, and I was up in Concan a couple of weeks ago, so I'll have to find out where he is and go and visit him. But I've got Seba, Rocco Morrow.
Danny Finn, thanks, mate.
Yeah,
Rocco Morrow,
Frankie,
Peter Flynn,
Enzo, Lou,
Jeffrey, Patrick,
DC,
Rat Poison, of course.
Rat Poison. How can we forget Rat Poison?
Enzo Valentino.
Yeah, can't forget it. Yeah, and Petra. Did we say Petra?
Yes.
Thomas.
Lou Foligno.
But you all know who you are.
He's a great supporter.
Yeah, they all know who they are. And thanks
Rob
for
Galicchio, big shout out to Rob Galicchio. He's been messaging me always, asking me if I'm okay and if I've recovered and all that sort of thing. So appreciate your support, Rob.
Anyway, so coming up this week on the Jumper Punch channel, I'm not sure what days, but look out for Paolo where he gives a review and a preview. Well, he won't do a preview this week, although he might preview us against the bye. I'd like to see if he tips us or not. Tuesday night, you got the boys from the Jumper Punch, Rocco.
Actually, by the way, Joe, I'll be very interested to hear what Paul Sebastiani has to say, because if you watched his preview, and I must say I was a bit surprised. He was very, very cocky about Carlton winning. He was convinced.
I was too.
He wasn't even just saying, "Look, I think Carlton can win." He just said that Carlton's winning this game. Carlton is
they
winning
should
this
have.
game.
Vince, GWS had 6 of their top players out and has played in Melbourne. If you can't beat that, forget it. Yeah. I was confident. I agree with him, but
I'll be interested to see what he says in his review. So always keep a lookout. Paul's a very analytical person, and he analyses the way we play very well. And I've got nothing but praise for him. So well done, Paul.
Very pissed off. and don't forget, I mentioned them, the Jumper Punch Tuesday night, and then Forever Rivals on Wednesday. I haven't checked the channel because I've been busy all over the place. I think Rocco put up the interview with Robert Walls.
Yeah, he did that last week. Yeah.
Yeah, but if not, well, I haven't seen it. So if people are like me, I believe it's a really good interview. So
if you subscribe to the Jumper Punch channel on YouTube and go into all the videos, you'll see everything listed there, including all of the player interviews we've done in the last 3-4 years.
Okay, all right.
And coaches like David Parkin and Robert Walls, they're all up there.
Yes. So anyway, that brings us to the end. So on behalf of myself and Vince, I'd like to wish you all a great week. I can't say I hope your team wins next week, except for you, Rat Poison. I think Geelong don't have a bye, and anyone else who doesn't follow Carlton. So on that note, good night, and go
Blues.
Those Blues. We lost. Anyway.
1, 2, 3.